Hi, I'm Joe with Gramophone, and we're excited today to be here with Mark Goldman, the VP of Sales for Theory. Mark, how you doing?
Hey, Joe. Great, thank you.
Great to see you again.
You as well. You as well.
You know, a lot of our customers, I think, because we've just so recently taken on your brand, might not necessarily be familiar with what you guys do and how you do it. But we've been so impressed with your products because when our owner first went and heard the demo that you did for him, he basically came back to the store and said, listen, Gramophone needs to get involved with this brand. So maybe we can just give a little bit of the backstory for what you do and how you do it, because this is not in any way, shape, or form, in my mind, a conventional speaker brand. You guys are so good at things that many of the speaker brands that are out there are not so good at. So maybe you can just give a little bit of the backstory.
Yeah, sure. And your owner, Andrew, came out. It was a lot of fun. He was pretty animated. Yeah. It was a good time.
He's got energy and enthusiasm.
He does. I've known him for a while. It was great.
Yeah.
So our owner is named Paul Hales, and he founded a company called Hales Design Group 30 years ago and did some of the best two-channel high-end loudspeakers in the world. He became well-known and successful, and QSE at the time was only doing commercial amplifiers. They wanted to get into the loudspeaker business, so they sought Paul out. They struck a deal and hired Paul to found their loudspeaker division. So the fact that he's worked in both the high-end world and the professional commercial world has allowed us something unique to put both worlds together. So we're building really accurate, high-resolution speakers that have dynamic range beyond anything in the high-end home world, but with detail and delicacy that will equal or even exceed most of the high-end home speakers. Right. So it's a unique formula of putting the two worlds together. Yeah.
So QSC, a big name in professional audio reinforcement, but I always knew them for the electronics, not for the speakers. Right. But what I didn't know until you were explaining it to me earlier was that Paul, because I knew of Paul, a lot of people are aware of high-end audio, knew of Hales, but you know, I wasn't aware that he was the one who really started them on the road to high-end reinforcement. Yeah. And if you can, talk a little bit more about what you just alluded to, because so often in the consumer world, we're used to detailed, but not necessarily detailed with volume. And of course, in the professional world, so often that world is all about projecting a wall of sound, a lot of volume, but not necessarily with the detail that guys like myself and yourself love to listen for. So maybe you can talk to us a little bit about putting those things together.
Yeah, that's really important. High-end speakers are detailed and delicate, but not dynamic, and pro speakers are dynamic, but not detailed and delicate. So we put both of those worlds together, and by doing that, especially with the advent of video and film simply has much more in terms of dynamic requirements than two-channel music does. So home speakers are really just the wrong tool for that job. They sound beautiful and pretty, but they just simply cannot have the dynamic capability that's required for film. So we've been having kind of exponential growth with the advent of film.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things when you talk about dynamic capability that's really important to us is that not only do we want our theaters to be able to perform when you're in that ideal situation and you can really crank it, but so often people want to watch a movie at night when maybe other members of the family are already asleep, or maybe there are next door neighbors that you don't want to disturb. And at that point, being able to hear the details when it's not cranked up is really crucial.
Yeah, we're building great loudspeakers, period. We're not building speakers that can just simply play loud. We're building accurate, highly resolved loudspeakers that are very delicate. So resolution is really important, and we're using DSP in our amplifiers to basically make the speakers more linear than you could make without using DSP. So we have great resolution at any volume. What we're after with dynamic capability isn't the ability to just peel the paint off the wall, although we can do that if you wish. But it's really about having effortlessness at any given volume, having the speaker be relaxed and easy sounding. That's what having big dynamic range gives you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So maybe we can just take, because you have set up a 5.2 system or 5.1?
5.1 with two subs.
With two subs, okay, perfect. We came in after you'd already started your presentation, and I set my bags down and I immediately thought, oh, this sounds really good. And you were explaining that you hadn't really had a chance to have enough time to totally dial it in. This room that we're presenting in today is, you know, obviously quite bright. Yeah. But I thought it sounded fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
Well, it's a very large room. It's very reverberant. It's more room than really, one pair of subs should be used to try and pressurize. So we were playing things that were showing you just what you mentioned. We were playing things that were detailed and delicate and natural, and the system just, excels in spades at doing those things.
Right. So why don't we grab one of the speakers here
Sure.
in the back, and you can kind of start telling
Yeah,
us
we'll
about
show you an SB25.
Sounds perfect, SB25. So Mark, for our viewing audience, this is SB25, and it's really one of the better selling speakers you have in your brand, right?
Yeah, this is really what I call the heart and soul of Theory surround sound. We make this speaker 4 different ways. We make it as the SB25, which is under 4 inches, about 3 inches thick. Comes with a Z-clip that it could be wall mounted, or it can sit and be a freestanding loudspeaker. Inside there's a pair of 5-inch custom carbon fiber woofers, and a custom-made compression driver. So we make it as an SB25 for freestanding or on-wall use. We also make an in-wall version of it, the exact same drivers, the exact same performance that fits in a 2x4 wall. We also make a metal grill version, that's an all-weather version to go outside. And then we make this in soundbars for 65, 75, and 85-inch TVs. Inside the soundbar, effectively, there are 3 SB25s. Every one of the 4 speakers has identical performance, identical tonality, identical dynamic range. You simply choose which application you want to employ.
So there's really a couple things we can comment on there. One of them is that for an integrator like ourselves at Gramophone, because you make it in either kind of floor standing on a tabletop or something like this, on wall, in wall, you know, you're really giving us as an integrator a great ability to look at a customer situation and say, well, it almost doesn't matter what we need, we can do it with this product.
Exactly.
Even if we go outside, which is becoming more and more common nowadays, because of course outdoor lighting is a big business for us, and enjoying the entertainment outdoors with the, you know, the nice grill out there and just having some great music and so forth. I mean, you've really given folks like ourselves a great ability to satisfy customer needs by having a product with an identical sonic signature able to be used in so many different ways.
Well, we don't have it to show you here today, but we also, I know you're aware, we make our IC6 in ceiling speaker, and we make that to go in the ceiling, and we also make a pendant enclosure to make it the world's best sounding pendant. Later this year, we're also coming out with our outdoor bollard speakers, which is the IC6 in a 360-degree bollard to radiate, or 180 degrees. So it's the same sonic signature in every one of those products. So you choose your sound, and then we can work in the screening rooms, the theater rooms, family room TV systems, and we can do distributed audio throughout the house and outdoor as well, all the same sound quality.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Now let's, there's a couple more things I'd like to unpack here just a bit. If you can, help us and our consumers understand the benefits of using compression driver technology because of what you talked about earlier with both dynamics and linear.
Yeah, it's about a relaxed sound, right? To get a little bit technical, if you take an average dome tweeter in a home loudspeaker and compare it to our compression driver, you'd have to put between 30 and 60 times the amount of power into the home dome tweeter to produce the same volume this tweeter would play with a single watt of power. So it's always cruising, it's always effortless, it's never working hard.
Yeah.
That's the big advantage you get, is this just ease that you can't get out of dome tweeters.
Yeah. So again, detail with volume and dynamic capabilities when you need it. The other thing that you mentioned so frequently, of course, with TVs getting better at a spectacular rate. It's amazing to me over the last 20 years or so how much television has changed for the better, because now you've got ultra thin TVs that can be huge sizes.
And the sound has gotten worse on the TVs as a result. Yes.
But that's the problem, is the sound, of course. I mean, those big old boxes, you know, 25 years ago that nobody really wanted in their living room, you could put a good pair of speakers in them if you wanted to, and now it's virtually impossible. So talk to us a little bit more about your sound bars, because a lot of times consumers want that flat panel look for the aesthetic and the beauty of the picture, but they don't necessarily then want to start putting boxes all over the place to get the great audio. So having a high resolution, high volume capability soundbar, that's a huge thing for us.
Yeah, there's really 2 ways to deploy that, right? We can do the soundbar and a surround receiver and a system remote control, as most integrators and consumers are aware. But there's an additional market as well, which is a lot of people don't want to have that much complexity. So what you can do with the new TVs is you can go eARC out of the TVs into an eARC decoder, then right into one of our amplifiers, which can then power our soundbar or soundbar and subwoofer. And now a client could have a TV with just an Apple TV or a Roku and that factory remote and control the volume up and down on the soundbar or soundbar and sub. So that's a great solution. We're seeing a lot of activity. A lot of people are wanting that. As a matter of fact, I have that in my house. You know, I don't want the big receiver and all the complexity my wife doesn't want right at the moment. So we're just running a simple soundbar and sub, and it sounds fantastic.
And because your amplifiers are relatively shallow, they can actually be concealed fairly
They could go behind the TV in a box.
Exactly.
They could put in.
So the customer gets the aesthetic that they want, the beautiful look that they want, but now they're getting, you know, as you were mentioning earlier, it's really in theater applications that you've got so much dynamic capability.
Yeah, you now have that in the family room, whether you do a simple system without a surround receiver or you want to have a full surround system, which is still the majority of our soundbar business. You have the same dynamic range that you have out of these loudspeakers, which is dynamic range that exceeds anything you could get on a home loudspeaker.
So we talked a moment ago about the SB25s that you saw as rear speakers in this arrangement. If you kind of come around, it'll give us the chance to show you that first off, here are 3 left, center, and right, 3 of these SB25s, so that we've got a complete 5-channel system, and 5.1, although there's actually twin subwoofers here. But this is also an acoustically transparent screen from Stewart film screens. So if you come back around to the front here, Hayes, and you can actually see, in this instance, we've got 3 stands to hold up those speakers. But in a custom installation, we can easily conceal the left, center, and right speaker because Stewart and other vendors too, but we always seem to use Stewart, they make an acoustically transparent screen that allows you to hear all the high frequencies well balanced at your seated listening position. So we're here at the Timonium Gramophone location, and this is the Theory SB85. It is probably the best sounding soundbar that you've ever heard. The soundbar solution is not always the right thing, but sometimes it's the only thing that's really gonna work. And if you want one that's better than the kind of run-of-the-mill soundbars, you wanna look in this direction because it's probably the best sounding soundbar that you've ever heard. This SB85 we have matched up with the Sony 97-inch diagonal TV. There is also an SB75 and an SB65, and all 3 share the exact same components. They're just downscaled a little bit in terms of what's inside to match up to the appropriate size of the television. So let's talk about what SB85 has under the hood. This is actually a 3-channel soundbar, so left, center, right. The complement that's inside starts with not tweeters, but there are 3 high-velocity compression drivers that are inside. So remember that Theory has a huge background, over 2 decades now, in professional audio reinforcement, and they understand how important dynamics are, because in most good movies, you're at times going to be whisper quiet, and other times there's huge things going on. If you can reproduce it cleanly, that's good. So that's why Theory goes with compression drivers instead of conventional tweeters, and those are about 1 1/4 inch. So each of those 3 tweeters is flanked by a pair of their carbon fiber 5 1/4 inch custom, not off the shelf, low frequency drivers. So those handle the bottom end, and this has usable output down to about 54 cycles. So it really can cover a tremendous part of the range. Those are mated, by the way, with this extruded aluminum cabinet, which you can see is not very deep at all. It's about that thick. Why extruded aluminum? Because this soundbar is capable of over 120 dB of output. That's a tremendous amount of output. And if the cabinet that the drivers are housed in is vibrating in any way, you've got trouble. So this is powder-coated extruded aluminum because it's extremely rigid and inert, and it doesn't start playing along with the drivers and adding its own distortion. It stays solid while the drivers and the high-frequency compression drivers are doing their thing. Now you can see that we've wall-mounted the SB85. They also make an accessory stand for it so that if you want to put it on top of a tabletop credenza or whatever, you can do that as well. Let's talk crossover network just a little bit. There's no conventional crossover in here. There's another component that you're going to need to make this sound right, and that's the amplified loudspeaker controller. So you notice that Theory doesn't call it an amplifier because it's much more than just an amp. This has got amplification and full DSP, so no conventional crossover. All of the output is under the control of the Theory Audio design and engineering team. You've seen speakers where it sounds okay with this amplifier, but not as good with that amp, or even better with some other amp. Well, that's because the amplifier manufacturer and the speaker manufacturer aren't exactly speaking with each other. Here, everything involved in the reproduction of the sound that you hear is under the control of the Theory design team. So tons of power to be able to achieve those over 120 decibels of clean output situations, but also you get really clear dialogue when it's down low. Next, let's talk about the subwoofers. Now, we've mentioned that SB85 has clean output down to about 54 cycles. So in order to get full range, we've paired it with twin sub-12s. These are, again, extremely capable subwoofers from Theory. This sounds incredible just as a 3-channel system if you want to do that. We've also opted for putting in ceiling speakers just behind, near our back wall here, so that we can do a full 5.2 channel setup as well. So now, what happened when we got to the fun stuff and we started a listening session? We put on Ready Player One, and our immediate response was, boy, this just sounds like it's a much, much bigger speaker complement than a simple soundbar, because the soundstage was big. And we also noticed that the dialogue sounded really clear, and that's a theme that'll come up in our next couple of videos as well. So the opening scenes to The Greatest Showman feature some beautiful singing, and again, we were immediately struck by how big and expansive it sounded. The voices, both lead vocal and then all of the other things that were going on, sounded really very natural, so it was really easy for us to kind of become immersed in the movie right away. Next, we popped on Top Gun Maverick. As you know, of course, there's all kinds of scenes with the jet engines flying overhead. The first thing we realized was the jet engines were delivering lots of low frequency information, but it wasn't impacting the dialogue at all. We could hear that clearly. The second thing we noticed was just how immersive it was, because of course, the jets are flying all over the place and you really feel like you're right in the middle of the scene. If what you want when you listen to your music and movies is the capability to go from whisper quiet, but hearing it clearly, to very loud and dynamic with no distortion, you really want to check out Theory Audio. So if we can, let's talk a little bit, Mark, about subwoofer technology. One of the things that we have talked about so far today is that this room is definitely less than ideal in terms of acoustics. But, you know, again, as integrators, we're not in the business of telling people they have to change their room.
Right.
We've got to deal with the reality of what each room presents to us. And great subwoofers give us a huge ability to tame out some of the problems in a room. And you guys make wonderful ones. So maybe you can talk just a little bit about your subs and the various products that you have
Sure.
in the subwoofer category that we can use as tools.
Yeah, sure. So one thing, regardless of our subs or someone else's subs, as I think you're alluding to, multiple subs in a room is a good thing. It helps to linearize the responses of each of the subs in the room. So that's, with our subs or anyone's subs, multiples is usually best. Also, multiple subs gives you lower distortion because each sub works less hard. We're all about effortlessness. But our subs are extraordinary. They're detailed, they're delicate. They don't just thump, they're very delineated. You know, we're using commercial drivers. These subs are capable of 1,500 watts of power handling capability, well beyond most home drivers, and they're very efficient, so they'll give you a lot of output with a minimal amount of power going in. So these are 12-inch subs that you're seeing here. We make a 15-inch version of this as well. Then we make a 12-inch in-wall version that fits in a 2x6 wall. And then our sister company, ProAudio Technology, makes subs that go up to 24 inches, and we're working on an infrasonic as well.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So there's lots of options in terms of subwoofer choices.
Yeah, yeah.
When you were playing some dynamic music for us earlier, in that Lady Gaga cut, I started realizing, oh, I can really clearly hear the difference between the drums,
Yeah.
the bass, and so forth. So talk a little bit about your approach to detail in subwoofers.
Well, it's really the same approach that we run with all of our speakers. We're building neutral, accurate, highly resolved loudspeakers. We're not designing speakers to simply play movies with or simply to have outdoor, sound reinforcement experiences with. We're just building neutral, high quality, accurate subwoofers. And when you do that, you're going to get delineation and detail and delicacy like that.
Right. I think everybody has had the experience of, there you are at the red light, and all of a sudden the kids come up behind and they
we're not building that.
Ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom.
But we could probably do a pretty good job of it.
Oh, I'm sure you could if you wanted to.
Right.
And of course, the issue with that is that there's no real detail. So anything you play has that same booming away sonic signature.
Yes, sameness of sound is a bad thing. Really neutral, accurate loudspeakers have very little character. So if you play a cut that has a lot of bass energy, that's what you're going to get. If you play a cut that's got less bass energy, that's what you're going to get. So there should be very little transferable sonic signature from recording to recording. That's what neutral and accurate means. That's what ultimately gives you the most realistic sound.
Yes.
And that's our goal. That's what we're designing. We've talked about theory, but before theory, 20 years ago, we had ProAudio technology, which we still have. And ProAudio technology was designed to do the largest, best performing screening rooms in the world. We came out of the LA Dolby DCI theater rooms where the producers and directors could get the content right from the studios. Dolby gets involved in those rooms and has requirements that you have to hit in terms of SPL capability so that their system remains effortless. They're very high channel count, so they're immersive. And they really want you angling the speakers towards the listening position so you get the best performance, the on-axis performance of the speakers. So these are the best performing rooms in the world. That's how Pro started. And today we're still involved in quite a number of those big Dolby DCI rooms. So beyond theory is another level, another gear, and that's Pro. And that's just simply more resolved, more dynamic, more capable, but the same tonality, because we believe correct neutral tonality is correct neutral tonality. It shouldn't change. But when you go to Pro, you do get more of everything. Effortlessness, more resolution, more detail, but the tonality does remain the same.
So therefore, we, as a client of yours, really have the ability with our clients to do incredibly sophisticated, huge, highly resolving and highly dynamic systems. And we can go all the way down to basically a simple soundbar and TV solution. So there's a ton of flexibility that we get with your brand.
Yeah, let me give you one more bit of information.
Sure.
I think it's kind of interesting on those big rooms, those Dolby DCI rooms for the producers and directors. Dolby has an Excel sheet that we have to fill out for that room, and the speakers have to meet certain requirements before they'll be able to approve that. And when you get that, it's called the Dolby Dart. And when you open up the Dart, one thing you'll notice, there are no home brand loudspeakers in the Dart. They're not capable of fulfilling those requirements. But Pro's in there, and one way I say it is, if Steven Spielberg were getting a new screening room, there's a couple things we know. And one thing we know, there would not be home branded loudspeakers in that room.
Yeah. Mark, anything else that you want to add that our clients should know?
No, just that we're thrilled to be doing business with Gramophone, and it's great to see you again.
Fantastic. Mark, it's great to see you.
You as well.
Thank all of you folks so much for watching this presentation. If you've enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. That helps us out a ton. And click that little bell icon over there so that you'll always be notified of our upcoming content. We'd love to play some things for you, regardless of what price point you're at for your next purchase. So if you can, come visit us. We have stores in Timonium, Columbia, and Gaithersburg, Maryland, just outside the Washington, D.C. market. And check out Sky by Gramophone, where we've got all kinds of products that you can purchase with fast and free shipping straight to your door. I'm Joe with Gramophone. Thanks again so much for watching.